Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take complex ideas and, well, really try and unearth the most vital insights. We offer a shortcut to being truly well informed. Today, we're embarking on I think, profound exploration into the very essence of human existence, our search for meaning. We're delving into the extraordinary work of a really pivotal figure in 20th century psychiatry, Dr. Viktor Frankl, and his enduring legacy, particularly his seminal work, Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning. Joining me to navigate these compelling ideas is a truly insightful expert. Frankel's story is, well, it's just as impactful as his theories, isn't it? Before we dive into the concepts themselves, perhaps you could set the stage for us. Introduce the man behind these, frankly, revolutionary ideas. His personal journey is quite remarkable.
It's my absolute pleasure. And you're right, his background is essential context.
Yeah.
Dr. Viktor Frankl was, yes, an Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist. But what truly distinguishes him and what profoundly shaped his professional contributions are his unique and frankly harrowing life experiences. He was, as you alluded to, a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
He endured 3 years in various concentration camps. We're talking about places like Auschwitz and Dachau. The conditions were just unspeakable.
Unimaginable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was from these incredibly brutal and dehumanizing circumstances that his profound psychological theories were forged, really, not just conceived, but tested in the most extreme reality. He wasn't simply an academic, theorizing in an ivory tower. He was living, breathing, observing the very questions he sought to answer about human resilience, the will to meaning, what actually sustains the human spirit, even in extremis. This direct, lived experience, it imbues his work with an unparalleled authenticity and weight.
You can feel that authenticity.
Absolutely. And following his liberation, Frankl went on to have a distinguished academic career. He served as a professor of neurology and psychiatry at the University of Vienna Medical School for 25 years. He also held prestigious professorships at institutions like Harvard and Stanford in the States, bringing his unique perspective to, well, a global audience. His distinctive therapeutic approach, known as logotherapy and existential analysis, it became formally recognized as the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy.
Right, following Freud and Adler.
Precisely. Building upon and, in many ways, challenging Freud's psychoanalysis and Adler's individual psychology. His most famous book, Man's Search for Meaning, has sold millions of copies worldwide. It continues to be translated into countless languages, which is just a testament to its universal resonance and enduring impact, really.
It truly is.
Indeed, Sir Cyril Burt, a former president of the British Psychological Society, hailed his contributions as the most important in the field of psychotherapy since the days of Freud, Adler, and Jung. That's quite a staggering endorsement, isn't it? Puts his significance into perspective within the broader landscape of psychotherapy and, well, our understanding of human psychology.
It's truly remarkable how his insights, born from such extreme suffering, continue to resonate so powerfully today. Claudia Hammond, in her foreword to Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning, she highlights its particular relevance in our current era of crisis and uncertainty, which I think speaks volumes, especially for those of us in the medical field who routinely confront suffering head-on. So what, in essence, was Frankl's core conviction about human existence? The thing that makes his work so enduring and particularly applicable to us, the clinicians, the caregivers, who often confront profound pain and distress directly.
Well, at its very heart, Frankl believed that we are not glorified animals, but repressed angels.
That's a striking phrase.
It is, isn't it? It's a profoundly optimistic, yet deeply realistic view of human nature. He was firmly convinced that there is more to our existence than meets the eye. This isn't just about mere biological survival or, the pursuit of pleasure, which were dominant themes in earlier psychological thought. It's about a deeply ingrained, almost innate human drive to find and fulfill meaning. It's what he terms a will to meaning.
The will to meaning.
Yes, and what's crucial here, and profoundly important for medical professionals who see people in the most extreme states of vulnerability and distress, from chronic illness to terminal diagnoses, is Frankl's assertion. He asserted that anyone, regardless of their circumstances, can find or create meaning. He argues quite powerfully that even a life of unbearable pain can still be meaningful.
Even unbearable pain.
Yes, and this conviction is, as you noted, especially poignant coming from someone who experienced the Holocaust firsthand. He wasn't saying suffering is good, not at all, but that our response to it can be meaningful.
Ah, the response, that's the key.
Exactly. For us as clinicians, this offers a powerful lens to see beyond the immediate physical or psychological suffering of a patient, to see the potential for meaning that can still be cultivated and discovered within their unique, often challenging situation. It shifts our focus, doesn't it? From just what is wrong to what can still be right, even in the face of irreversible loss or pain.
That's a fundamental shift in perspective for healthcare.
It is. So the core insight here isn't just that suffering can have meaning, but that our role as healthcare providers perhaps expands beyond just alleviating symptoms to actively helping patients cultivate that meaning, even in the direst circumstances. It's about moving from simply treating a condition to truly caring for a person's existential well-being, the whole person.
That's a powerful statement, particularly in a clinical context where, let's be honest, the immediate focus is often on alleviating suffering, restoring function, perhaps less on the patient's overarching sense of purpose. Now, Frankl didn't shy away from challenging the prevailing psychological paradigms of his time, did he?
Not at all. He was quite direct.
Let's really unpack his critiques of Freudian psychoanalysis and Adlerian psychology. What were his fundamental disagreements with their views of the human person? And why did he feel they missed something crucial that we as medical professionals really need to understand when dealing with patients?
Well, Frankl argued that psychoanalysis, while it initially championed objectivity as a scientific approach, ultimately, in his view, succumbed to it.
Mm.
This led, he felt, to the objectification or reification of the human person.
Objectification,
Yeah.
turning people into things.
Essentially, yes. He felt it turned human beings into things, viewing patients as machines governed by mechanisms that just needed repair. He famously quipped that only a home machine is in need of a medicine technician. Only a human machine needs a technical doctor.
Oof, that hits home for medicine, doesn't it?
It's a critical point for medical practice, I think. If we view patients purely as broken mechanisms, as just a collection of symptoms or malfunctioning parts, we risk missing their inherent humanity, their unique spirit, their capacity for self-determination, for meaning.
So what were his specific criticisms of that mechanistic view?
He highlighted two main points regarding psychoanalytic thought, primarily. Firstly, he criticized its psychological atomism. He saw it as dismantling the human psyche into separate drives and drive components, and in doing so, destroying the unified whole of the human person.
Breaking it down too much.
Exactly. He illustrated this by pointing out the Freudian idea that the sensor which represses drives is itself a drive, or that the ego is made up of ego drives. To Frankl, this revealed a materialistic and, well, atomistic bias. Like claiming a builder made of bricks built a building of bricks, it doesn't quite add up. Such an approach, he argued, depersonalizes man by failing to see the integrated spiritual whole.
Okay, I can see that. If you have a patient with complex psychosomatic symptoms.
Precisely. If a doctor, influenced by this sort of atomism, only sees them as a collection of individual physiological dysfunctions or repressed drives, they might completely miss the unified person who's seeking meaning in their suffering. They fail to treat the whole man, as it were.
And the second criticism.
Secondly, he pinpointed energism as a core flaw. Psychoanalysis, he argued, was characterized by this energism, constantly operating with instinctual energism and emotional dynamism, reducing human phenomena, essentially, to determine drives. Freud's stark statement that the ego is not the master in its own house exemplified this being-driven interpretation of humanity for Frankl.
Right, the idea that we're just pushed around by unconscious forces.
Exactly. This meant to Frankl that psychoanalysis ultimately perceived humans as automatons of a psychic apparatus, merely responding to internal forces rather than actively choosing and deciding. This reduction of humanity to being driven means we overlook their unique human capacity for choice, agency.
Where is the agency if everything is just instinctual energy?
Precisely. How does a medical professional empower a patient if they fundamentally believe the patient is just a bundle of reactive forces with no inherent freedom? It risks making the patient a passive recipient of therapy rather than an active participant in their own healing journey.
Okay, that clarifies his issues with Freud. What about Adler? He acknowledged Adler's contributions, didn't he?
He did. He acknowledged Adler's focus on courage and overcoming inferiority feelings through striving for superiority, which is somewhat akin to Nietzsche's will to power. But Frankl still felt that Adlerian psychology, much like Freudian, ultimately centered on alleviating an internal condition.
So still focused inwards.
Yes. It was about overcoming a deficit within oneself rather than directing the individual towards something beyond themselves, something transcendent. While valuable, he felt that remained largely self-focused.
And for patients facing, say, chronic conditions or irreversible disabilities?
Well, focusing solely on internal mechanisms or overcoming an inferiority might overlook their profound potential to find meaning and purpose outside of their immediate pathology. by engaging with the world or with others, or finding a new attitude. This is a critical distinction that Frankl really hammered home. It's about self-transcendence, not just self-improvement.
Okay, so if humans aren't just machines or playthings of their drives, constantly trying to reduce tension or overcome inferiority, what did Frankl propose as his alternative vision? How does he define authentic human existence, and what does this mean for how we, as medical professionals, perhaps ought to approach patient care in a more holistic way?
Right. This is where existential analysis fundamentally diverges and offers a profoundly different and, I think, more hopeful perspective.
Hmm.
Instead of the automaton of a psychic apparatus, Frankl focused squarely on the autonomy of spiritual existence. And it's vital here to clarify what he meant by spiritual. He didn't necessarily mean religious in a specific denominational sense, though it can include that.
Okay, so not necessarily religion.
Not necessarily. He uses the term to denote what is uniquely human, distinguishing us from other animals.
Mm,
Our capacity for self-awareness, conscience, freedom, responsibility, and meaning-making. It's that dimension of freedom.
got it. The uniquely human dimension.
Yes. And the core identity of being human, for Frankl, is being responsible. This is absolutely foundational to his entire philosophy. He famously inverted the traditional philosophical question, what is the meaning of life?
How did he invert it?
He contended that man is not he who poses the question, but he who is asked this question, for it is life itself that poses it to him.
Wow, okay, so life asks us the question.
Exactly. It shifts the entire paradigm. Life isn't waiting for us to impose meaning upon it. Rather, life is constantly presenting us with questions, challenges, situations, and it demands a response from us. And our response, he stressed, is necessarily a response in action, a responding by being responsible. And it's always ad personam plus ad situationem to a concrete person in a concrete situation. Specific.
So
Unique.
meaning isn't abstract, it's lived out in specific actions.
Precisely. Meaning isn't a theoretical construct to be pondered from a distance, but something we enact through our unique choices and actions, uniquely tailored to our individual circumstances. For medical professionals, this transforms our role, potentially, from merely fixing what's broken to empowering patients to discover and act on their responsibilities, their unique meaning, even within the constraints imposed by illness or disability. We help them see that even when the body fails, the spirit, that core of freedom, can still respond.
That's a profound way to think about patient empowerment.
It is. And as a psychotherapeutic method, therefore, logotherapy's core aim is to bring patients to an awareness of this profound responsibleness. Unlike psychoanalysis, which seeks to make the instinctual unconscious conscious, bringing repressed drives into awareness, logotherapy brings the spiritual or existential to consciousness.
So bringing our capacity for meaning and responsibility into view.
Exactly. It's about allowing this self to become conscious of itself, rather than the ego becoming conscious of the id. This recenters the individual as an active agent, capable of choice and meaning-making, rather than merely a reactive entity driven by unconscious forces. This empowers a patient to engage with their situation, to find their own why, not just be a passive recipient of care. It's a rehumanizing process in itself.
This concept of the spiritual unconscious is quite provocative, isn't it? Especially given the historical emphasis on repressed instincts in psychoanalysis. How did Frankl expand our understanding of the unconscious beyond Freud's focus on those instinctual drives? And what are the implications of distinguishing between the instinctual and the spiritual within the unconscious for our clinical understanding of patients? Does it change how we listen?
It certainly does. Frankl fundamentally argued for expanding the limits of the unconscious to include a spiritual unconscious, in addition to the instinctual one. For him, existence is essentially unconscious at its deepest foundation, meaning the most fundamental aspects of our being, our inherent drive for meaning, our conscience, our capacity for love and responsibility, are not fully accessible to direct conscious reflection.
So it's not about hidden desires, but something deeper.
Precisely. It's about the foundational, pre-reflective elements of our unique human being, our core potential, if you like. And he drew a very sharp divide here. While the line between conscious and unconscious is fluid, think of repression. Things can move back and forth. The distinction between the spiritual and the instinctual cannot be drawn sharply enough.
A fundamental difference in kind.
Yes. Ludwig Binswanger, another prominent existential analyst, referred to them as incommensurable concepts, creating an ontological hiatus. They belong to different orders of being. Authentically human existence, therefore, isn't about being driven by biological forces or psychological mechanisms, but about deciding what one is going to be. This is a direct challenge to that Freudian notion of being driven. Frankl contended that authentic existence is where a self is deciding for itself, but not where an id is driving it.
The self decides, the id drives. Big difference.
Huge difference. He believed that much of depth psychology had effectively idified and de-selfified human existence by reducing the self to a mere epiphenomenon of drives. For clinicians, this means we must look beyond just observable behaviors or reported symptoms to the deeper, often unarticulated spiritual strivings of our patients, their search for meaning.
Even if they don't express it in religious terms.
Especially then, perhaps. This spiritual core, Frankl posited, is what truly integrates us and provides our unique wholeness. While body and psyche form a psychophysical unity, they don't represent the wholeness of man on their own. Only with the spiritual as its essential ground can this wholeness exist. He beautifully articulated this by saying we don't have a self, we are a self.
We are a self. That's powerful.
Isn't it? The psychophysical components are something we possess or experience, but our spiritual dimension defines who we fundamentally are, our unique and irreducible identity. For medical practitioners, this suggests that holistic care must extend beyond the somatic and psychological conditions to acknowledge and engage with the patient's spiritual core. Even if that spirituality is not overtly religious or expressed in conventional ways, neglecting this dimension means we only treat part of the person.
A partial view.
Indeed. Frankl contended that depth psychology, up to his time, had only explored the depth of man's instincts, neglecting the depth of his spirit. This spiritual activity, precisely because it is so absorbing and fundamental to our being, often remains unconscious. Human existence is basically unreflectable, he said.
Unreflectable, meaning we can't fully grasp it consciously.
Not entirely through reflection alone. It exists in action rather than reflection. He described consciousness and responsibleness as phenomena, irreducible, unanalyzable primary phenomena. They're fundamental attributes of human existence that cannot be broken down further into simpler components or fully explained away.
So there's a depth we can't fully dissect.
That's the idea. This insight pushes clinicians to look beyond simple cause and effect explanations for human behavior, especially when it comes to phenomena like meaning, purpose, and profound ethical choices. It highlights that there's a depth to human experience that purely material or biological explanations can't fully capture.
That makes perfect sense. So it's about acknowledging a deeper dimension of human agency and meaning-making that operates below the surface. Now, Frankl used the phenomenon of conscience as a key model to illustrate this spiritual unconscious. What did he uncover about conscience? Particularly its, well, irrational and individual nature. And how does this resonate with the complex ethical decisions faced daily in medicine, where we're often grappling with unique patient situations?
Yes, conscience was central for him. He saw it as indeed an phenomenon, an irreducible, inherent phenomenon in us as deciding beings. He described it as irrational, illogical, or pre-logical, a pre-moral understanding of meaning that actually precedes any explicit understanding of values or rules.
Pre-moral, before rules.
Yes, it's not something we rationally construct or learn first. It's an intuitive, almost gut-level grasp of what is right or meaningful in a given specific situation. Crucially, Frankl observed that momentous, authentic decisions take place completely without reflection and thus unconsciously.
Really? The biggest decisions are unconscious.
Often, yes, at their core. This means our deepest moral compass operates below the level of conscious thought, guiding us even when we can't fully articulate why we feel a certain way. It's often a feeling of oughtness.
That intuitive sense of, this is what needs to be done.
Precisely. And he contrasted conscience, which he provocatively called the ethical instinct, with biological vital instincts. While vital instincts are rigid and serve the species generally, like an ant sacrificing itself for the colony or an animal responding schematically to a threat, conscience is unique. It enables us to discover the unique requirement of a unique situation, adjusting general moral law to personal concreteness.
Tailoring the general rule to the specific person and moment.
Exactly. Unlike rigid general rules, conscience speaks to the unum necesse, the one necessary thing in this specific moment for this specific person. This is highly relevant in medical ethics, isn't it? Where broad principles like beneficence or autonomy must be applied to individual, complex patient scenarios, often requiring an intuitive, personalized judgment call beyond just the protocols.
Absolutely. When standard protocols conflict with a deep sense of what's best for this patient.
That's the ethical instinct, the conscience at prey, according to Frankl.
And he drew parallels with other human capacities.
Yes, profoundly. With love and artistry. Love, like conscience, aims at the uniqueness of the beloved. It possesses a significant cognitive function and insight into the other's potentiality. He noted that for ancient Hebrews, the same word was used for the act of love and for knowledge, highlighting this insightful grasp.
Interesting connection.
And similarly, artistic conscience stems from the spiritual unconscious, with non-rational intuition and inspiration being vital to creative expression. He cautioned that excessive self-reflection or hyper-reflection actually harms creativity and spontaneity. Therapy, he argued, should sometimes aim for de-reflection, restoring trust in the unconscious's natural ability to guide us towards meaning and right action.
So making everything conscious isn't always the goal.
Not the ultimate goal. Becoming conscious is merely a transitory stage, he suggested. The ultimate task is to restore the spontaneity and naivete of an unreflected existential act, converting an unconscious potentiality into a conscious actus act, only to allow it to return to an unconscious habitus, an ingrained, effortless, authentic way of being.
Gaining insight to let it become intuitive again.
Exactly, integrating it back into our being.
That's fascinating, this idea that our deepest insights and moral compass operate on a level beyond explicit rationalization. Can you offer some specific examples of how this spiritual unconscious, particularly conscience, manifests? Perhaps through dreams, as Frankl discussed in his clinical practice? This would really bring the concept to life for our listeners, especially those in the medical field trying to understand the whole patient.
Absolutely. Frankl saw dreams as potentially powerful utterances of conscience and expressions of the spiritual unconscious. He believed they could reveal deeper truths that patients might not consciously acknowledge or even be ready to face in their waking lives. Messages from the deeper spiritual core.
Okay, give us an example.
Well, he shared the dream of a woman who took a dirty cat, which clearly symbolized her daughter, to the laundry, only for it to die there. His interpretation. This was her conscience warning her quite starkly not to torment her daughter with exaggerated demands of moral cleanliness, or she might effectively lose her by suffocating her spirit and individuality.
Wow. A direct warning from the unconscious.
A very direct moral message about her ethical responsibility in parenting, not about repressed sexual urges, for instance. Another compelling example involved a patient who repeatedly dreamed of trying to dial a phone with a gigantic dial of 100 numbers, utterly unable to connect. Frankl, understanding the nuances of language, knew that in German the word wählen means both choosing and dialing.
Ah, the double meaning.
Precisely. The dream, he revealed, expressed the patient's profound struggle to choose between a financially successful but utterly unfulfilling job and his true religious and artistic vocation. His unconscious was desperately seeking to be reconnected, a direct link to the Latin root of religio, meaning to bind back or reconnect.
His conscience pushing him towards authenticity.
Yes, towards a life aligned with his deeper purpose, even if consciously he resisted leaving a secure job. A particularly poignant dream involved the patient rejecting saccharin from his father, who symbolized rigid tradition in favor of bitter coffee or tea. This, Frankl explained, showed the patient's unconscious renunciation of existentially inauthentic religiosity, which he perceived as cheap consolation, like a sugar substitute, for a genuine, perhaps more challenging faith.
Rejecting the artificial sweetness.
Yes. His internal moral compass was rejecting superficiality and yearning for something more substantial, more real.
These are powerful examples, any related to institutional religion.
Yes, dreams also revealed struggles there. One patient dreamed of a bombed-out church with only the altar intact and blue heavens shining through the ruins. Frankl saw this as symbolizing her spiritual shock from the war, leading her to recognize the deeper central core of faith beyond the crumbling structures of institutional religion. A newfound freedom to see the divine directly.
Finding the core amidst the ruins.
Exactly. Another patient's dream depicted St. Stephen's Cathedral as closed, but she then found a candy box inscribed, "God calls." This revealed her anxious striving for a religious life and how her mystical experiences, symbolized by the sweet candy, perhaps came with the perceived risk of insanity, maybe due to societal stigma or internal conflict. Her dream showed a deep personal yearning for spiritual connection, even amidst institutional barriers or personal fears.
So the unconscious holds these deep spiritual struggles and insights.
And often, Frankl noted, with a certain shame of religiousness. He observed patients often felt ashamed of their religious feelings, trying to conceal them, even when open about intimate sexual details.
Shamed, why?
He explained it not as neurotic inhibition, but as a natural attitude, akin to the shame or modesty in love, which protects what is sacred and deeply personal from profanation or misinterpretation. He cited a dream where a patient saw a light in the heavens condense into Christ, feeling intense embarrassment when asked to reveal the figure. This indicated a deep yet fiercely private religious conviction.
Protecting the sacred core.
Yes. He also noted that flagrantly religious motifs can appear in the dreams of outwardly irreligious people, because there's not only repressed libido, but also potentially repressed and unconscious religio, underscoring the intimate, often unacknowledged quality of genuine religiousness.
That's a vital lesson for us as clinicians, isn't it? To be sensitive to unexpressed spiritual needs.
Absolutely. Needs which might be hidden under layers of social or even self-imposed intellectual repression, and not to dismiss these as mere neuroses. He mentioned a patient who felt psychotherapy had made her feel any longing for God was unrealistic, causing intense shame. His work gave her permission to reclaim that repressed dimension. In another insightful case, a patient dreamt of trying to visit a psychotherapist near a church, but a little girl, representing her childhood self, told her to go back. She'd taken the wrong way to find the church. This revealed her unconscious conviction that her spiritual recovery had to involve a return to simple, childlike faith, moving from a hidden God to a revealed one, the unconscious providing direct guidance.
Professor, you've alluded to the transcendent quality of conscience several times, and that phrase really stuck with me. Can we delve into what Frankl meant by this? Why is it so pivotal to his understanding of human responsibility, especially in the context of professional ethics and decision-making in healthcare? It seems to point beyond mere rules or personal preference.
Precisely. It points beyond the purely psychological. Frankl articulates this with a powerful admonition he quotes from Maria von Ebner-Eschenbach. Be the master of your will and the servant of your conscience. He then asks, for us to truly be the servant of my conscience, could it be that conscience has not to be something other than I myself? Might it not be something higher than he who merely perceives its voice?
Something higher?
Yes. This implies that conscience is not just a psychological fact, an internal mechanism, or a set of learned rules, but a phenomenon transcendent of man. It points beyond us, connecting us, perhaps, to something universal or objective.
So the voice of conscience isn't just our own internal monologue.
Not entirely, according to Frankl. The common phrase, the voice of conscience, isn't a mistake. It signifies that perhaps a transhuman agent persona is sounding through the human person. He uses the powerful analogy of the human navel. It only makes sense when understood as pointing beyond the individual to their origin, their connection to something prior.
Right, points to the mother.
Exactly. Similarly, conscience points to its own transcendent origin. It's a pointer, a tether, to something beyond the immanent, beyond our individual self. For a medical professional, this suggests that ethical dilemmas are not merely about personal preference, professional guidelines, or societal norms, but perhaps about discerning a higher imperative, an objective value that resonates through one's conscience.
Like in those difficult cases. End-of-life decisions, resource allocation.
Precisely. When the legal and ethical guidelines are complex, and the right answer isn't immediately obvious in the rulebook, what guides the clinician? Frankl suggests it's this connection to something transcendent, perceived through conscience. This leads to a crucial point about responsibility beyond the self. The irreligious man, or one approaching life from a purely materialist view, might only see conscience in its psychological facticity, stopping there.
Seeing it just as an internal authority?
Yes. But for Frankl, conscience is not the last to what of responsibleness, but the next to last. We are responsible for our choices, but ultimately not responsible before himself alone. This implies a to what, or before whom, that is prior to responsibleness itself.
A higher authority or standard?
Something like that. A notion captured beautifully by Goethe. Whenever man wills, this act of will always presupposes a grasp of what he ought to do. The ought is ontologically prior to the will.
The ought comes first.
It's not something we invent, it's something we discover and respond to. That's his point. And this is where he takes strong issue with philosophies like Sartre's, that claim man creates his own standards and values from nothing. He views this as an idealistic tradition, akin to a fakir trick, a magician claiming to throw a rope into empty space and make a boy climb it. It denies objective reality.
So meaning isn't invented, it's discovered.
Exactly. That's a fundamental distinction. Meaning exists objectively in the world, in situations awaiting our discernment, rather than being a purely subjective projection or arbitrary creation. We find it.
Okay, and how does this relate to traditional religious ideas? He had that Copernican switch regarding God and the Father image.
Yes. In a stark contrast to psychoanalytic reductions of God to merely an introjected father image, or projection of infantile needs. Frankl suggests a Copernican switch. For theology, God is not a father image, but rather the Father is an image of God.
The Father reflects God, not the other way around.
Precisely. Our natural father, with all his imperfections, is but the first representative, perhaps, of a supernatural father and creator. He posits that if we can show that within him there is a repressed angel, meaning this inherent spiritual core, then no one will be able to make us believe that man is a sublimated animal. It offers a deeply humanizing counter-narrative to purely reductionist explanations of human spirituality and our innate yearning for the transcendent. It argues our deepest human qualities reflect something higher, not just byproducts of drives.
This leads us directly to Frankl's concept of the unconscious God. That's a profound phrase. What exactly does he mean by this? And how does it challenge traditional views of religiousness and its psychological underpinnings, especially for those of us in scientific fields like medicine who might view religious experience purely psychologically or even pathologically?
The unconscious God refers to a latent relation to transcendence inherent in man. It's part of what Frankl calls the transcendent unconscious. This means that humans, he believed, have always stood in an intentional relation to transcendence, even if only on an unconscious level.
An inherent orientation towards something beyond ourselves.
Yes, not necessarily a conscious belief for everyone, not an explicit religious affiliation, but a fundamental, innate orientation towards ultimate meaning, or perhaps a higher being. An unconscious intentionality. Now, Frankl is very clear on what this isn't.
Okay, what isn't it?
Firstly, it's not pantheistic. The unconscious itself is not divine. It's only related to the divine, perhaps acting as a gateway or receiver. Secondly, it's not occultism. The unconscious is not omniscient or magical. And most importantly, and this is where he strongly criticizes C.G. Jung, it's not an impersonal force.
How did he differ from Jung there?
Jung saw unconscious religiousness as tied to religious archetypes in the collective unconscious, making it impersonal, collective, typical. For Jung, Frankl argued, something within us is religious, but it's not necessarily I who is religious. It implies a drivenness rather than a personal engagement or choice.
Okay, so Frankl saw it as more personal.
Profoundly personal. For Frankl, religiousness involves the most personal decisions man makes, even if it's only on an unconscious level. It's a matter of decidingness, not drivenness. It's not a religious drive that compels us like an instinct. He stated very clearly, genuine religiousness is either existential or not at all.
Meaning it has to be a personal encounter or decision.
Yes. It cannot be reduced to an inherited or instinctual impulse. It is always an active, personal engagement, even if that engagement unfolds unconsciously or in response to a unique personal call. This is critical for medical professionals encountering patients of diverse beliefs, or none. It affirms that genuine religiousness or spirituality is a deeply personal pathway, a unique relationship, not a pre-programmed or collective response that can be dismissed as just a psychological phenomenon. It's about how the individual relates to the transcendent, not what collective forces are at play.
So it's not biologically innate like an archetype?
No, not in a biological sense. He argued religiousness is not innate or inherited that way. There are no fixed archetypes in the Jungian sense predetermining our religious expression. Instead, it's often assimilated from cultural molds, the prayers, rites, revelations, examples from saints, the religious traditions we're exposed to.
So culture provides the language or symbols?
Yes. We are born into a world of symbols and narratives, not with them hardwired. But this doesn't mean religiousness is merely a social construct. It means we engage with these given cultural frameworks in a personal, existential way, shaping them through our unique freedom and responsibility. Our inherent capacity for transcendence finds its expression through these cultural forms.
Okay, that makes sense. Did he offer clinical evidence for this idea of repressed religiousness?
He did, providing compelling examples for his assertion that repression winds up in neurosis. He recounted the case of a patient with severe obsessive-compulsive neurosis, haunted by the obsessive fear of the eternal damnation of his late mother or sister due to his perceived failings. Now, this patient was a self-proclaimed free thinker and materialist. He intellectually denied God.
But his symptoms told a different story.
Exactly. Emotionally, his anxieties and compulsions revealed a belief in a vengeful God. Frankl daringly reverses Freud's famous dictum that religion is the universal compulsive neurosis of mankind, to suggest instead that compulsive neurosis may well be diseased religiousness.
Wow. Neurosis as diseased religiousness.
Yes. In his powerful imagery, when the angel in us is repressed, he turns into a demon. Our deepest spiritual yearnings, when denied or suppressed, can manifest as psychological pathology.
That has huge implications for diagnosis.
It does. He also noted a sociocultural parallel where repressed religion in society degenerates into superstition, with deified reason and a megalomaniac technology, serving as repressive structures, filling the void left by genuine spiritual engagement. It's a profound warning for clinicians to consider the spiritual dimension in assessments, even when patients don't present with overtly religious concerns.
And his conclusion about belief, especially after Auschwitz.
Ultimately, Frankl concludes that belief in God, or ultimate meaning, is unconditional. It can survive anything. He reflects profoundly on the Holocaust experience, stating, "Among those who actually went through the experience of Auschwitz, the number of those whose religious life was deepened by far exceeds the number of those who gave up their belief."
Deepened, not destroyed for most.
Yes. He uses a vivid metaphor. Like a large fire enhanced by a storm, a strong faith is strengthened by predicaments and adversity, while a weak one is simply extinguished. This perspective is a crucial reminder for clinicians that profound suffering can, paradoxically, be a crucible for deeper meaning and spiritual growth, rather than merely a source of breakdown or despair. It's a testament to the indestructible nature of the human spirit's search for meaning.
If that search for meaning is so fundamental, then what happens when it's frustrated? Frankl described this as the existential vacuum. What are its manifestations, and why does he think it's so prevalent in modern society, impacting even seemingly successful professionals and leading to significant mental health challenges?
Well, Frankl identified the will to meaning as the most profound human motivation. And it's not just philosophy. It has been empirically validated. Instruments like the Purpose in Life test, PIL, and the Logo test demonstrate it's a specific need not reducible to other needs. It's a real, observable human drive, distinct from drives for pleasure or power.
Maslow agreed, didn't he?
Yes, Abraham Maslow even considered it man's primary concern. And Frankl posited that human existence is fundamentally self-transcendent, meaning it is always directed to something or someone other than itself,
Pointing outward.
always pointing outwards, whether that's a cause to serve or a partner to love. This outwardly directed nature is essential. Self-actualization, which is often seen as the ultimate goal in other psychological theories, isn't the primary goal for Frankl.
Really? What is it then?
It's an unintentional byproduct of this self-transcendence. It happens when you're not focused on it. He illustrates this beautifully with the analogy of a child absorbed in play versus one posing for a camera. Forgetting oneself leads to natural graciousness and authenticity.
Like the eye seeing the world, not itself.
Exactly. The eye functions perfectly when it perceives the world, not itself, as when afflicted with a cataract. Our deepest fulfillment and self-actualization come from looking outwards, engaging with the world and others, rather than being solely preoccupied with our own internal state or self-improvement project.
Okay, so what happens when that outward drive is blocked? The existential vacuum.
Yes, the existential vacuum. He saw it as a worldwide phenomenon, a pervasive feeling of meaninglessness and emptiness. It manifests primarily as boredom and apathy, a profound loss of interest in the world, and a lack of initiative to do something in the world.
Boredom and apathy as symptoms of meaninglessness.
Yes. Modern industrialized and consumer societies, while incredibly efficient at satisfying our material needs, often inadvertently frustrate this deeper human need for meaning. They can uproot individuals, particularly the younger generation, from traditional values and transcendent goals, leaving a void. We see this paradox of affluence.
People having everything but feeling empty.
Precisely. People who have everything materially yet feel profoundly empty, disengaged, listless. For a medical professional, recognizing this underlying existential void is crucial. It can present as somatic symptoms, chronic fatigue, anxiety, or psychological distress without a clear organic cause. Patients might describe it as just going through the motions or asking, what's the point?
That makes a lot of sense, that paradox of modern affluence. And this leads to some really disturbing societal effects, doesn't it? Frankl spoke of a mass neurotic triad. Could you elaborate on what this triad entails? And the evidence supporting its link to a frustrated will to meaning? It seems particularly relevant to the mental health challenges we see today, especially among younger generations.
Indeed. The existential vacuum, when prolonged and pervasive, can result in what Frankl termed the mass neurotic triad: depression, addiction, and aggression.
Depression, addiction, aggression, linked to meaninglessness.
Yes, he saw them not just as isolated pathologies, but often as symptoms of a deeper underlying meaning crisis. Regarding depression, Frankl noted a dramatic increase in suicides, especially among youth, often directly linked to a profound sense of futility and meaninglessness. He cited that cab driver's incredibly succinct observation about young people being mad because they kill themselves, they kill each other, and they take dope.
A bleak assessment.
Bleak, but pointing to that connection. This link between meaninglessness and self-harm is a critical concern for medical and mental health professionals. We see echoes in the discussions around deaths of despair. When life seems to hold no purpose, for some, sadly, escape seems the only option.
And addiction. How does that fit in?
On addiction, studies consistently show a strong correlation between drug use, marijuana, hallucinogens, and a desire to find meaning in life or suffering over its lack. Researchers like Krippner, Judd, and Lin found that users were significantly more bothered by a lack of meaning than non-users. It's not just escaping pain. It's often trying to fill an inner void.
Trying to find meaning through substances.
Or at least numb the pain of its absence. Anne-Marie von Forsmeyer's research, for instance, found that a staggering 18 out of 20 alcoholics viewed their existence as meaningless and without purpose. Crucially, logotherapy-oriented techniques demonstrated superior success rates in treating addiction. Alvin R. Fraser's work with narcotic addicts achieved a 40% success rate compared to an institutional average of only 11%.
That's a significant difference.
It highlights the profound therapeutic power of addressing the meaning deficit, not just the substance use. If you can help someone find a compelling why, the need for an artificial escape often diminishes.
And the third part of the triad? Aggression.
Aggression. While it's more complex, Frankl critiqued the notion that watching TV violence relieves aggressive impulses. He cited studies showing it actually increases aggression. He pointed to Carolyn Wood Sheriff's famous experiments with children where intense group aggression was remarkably overcome by uniting them in a common task, like dragging a carriage out of the mud.
Shared purpose reduced aggression.
Exactly. When children found a shared, meaningful purpose, their aggressive energies were redirected and transformed into cooperation. This suggests that a lack of common meaning and shared purpose can lead to frustration, which can then manifest as outward hostility. For a society fragmented and lacking unifying narratives, aggression can escalate.
So he saw reductionism in psychology as partly responsible.
Yes, he attributed these societal ills in part to reductionism in prevailing psychological theories and philosophical thought. If meanings and values are dismissed as nothing but defense mechanisms, reaction formations, or mere biological drives, then, well, why live? Why strive? If man is only seeking pleasure or merely determined by environment and heredity, why bother trying to change or improve?
It removes the motivation.
It provides plenty of excuses, but no genuine reason to improve. It offers a distorted, dehumanizing view of the individual. He uses Goethe's powerful quote again. If I take man as he is, I make him worse. If I take him as he ought to be, I make him become what he can be.
Believing in the potential helps create it.
That's what Frankl called real realism. A belief in the human potential for the best, even when it's not immediately apparent. A call for us to uphold a higher vision of humanity.
And he warned about doctors causing neurosis.
Yes, a stark warning against iatrogenic neuroses caused by the physician, or psychiatrogenic neuroses. This can occur if a therapist, or indeed any clinician adopting a machine model or rat model of man, inadvertently debilitates a patient's awareness of themselves as a free and responsible agent.
By reducing them to their diagnosis.
Exactly. By reducing them to their pathology or their drives, we can strip them of their inherent human dignity and capacity for choice. This is a profound ethical warning for all medical and mental health professionals. The philosophical assumptions underlying our practice can actively harm patients if they strip them of their sense of agency and meaning, fostering learned helplessness rather than empowerment.
Given this pervasive existential vacuum and its challenging manifestations, what then is logotherapy's therapeutic approach? How does it help individuals rediscover or construct meaning? And how does it rehumanize psychotherapy in a way that's particularly valuable for us in patient care?
Well, logotherapy fundamentally aims to rehumanize psychotherapy by moving beyond just unmasking the neurotic, Freud, or de-ideologizing psychotherapy, Rogers, or demythologizing neurosis, Eysenck. It actively integrates the human dimension, specifically focusing on man's unique capacities for self-transcendence and self-detachment.
Self-detachment, being able to step back from oneself.
Precisely. It's the remarkable human capacity to distance oneself from one's own conditions, even one's neuroses, or physical pain or anxieties. A key logotherapeutic technique that mobilizes this self-detachment is paradoxical intention.
Paradoxical intention. How does that work?
It often ingeniously uses the human sense of humor. For example, a patient suffering from severe insomnia, terrified of not being able to sleep, might be told by the therapist to actively try to stay awake for as long as possible.
The opposite of what they want.
Exactly. Or a patient with a phobia of sweating in social situations might be encouraged to try and sweat more than anyone else in the room. By intentionally wishing for or trying to do what they fear, the anxious anticipation, the feedback loop, is broken, and the symptom often diminishes or disappears.
Taking the wind out of the anxiety sails.
Precisely. Dr. Iverhand observed patients in behavior therapy spontaneously, using humor as a main coping mechanism, detaching themselves from their symptoms. And studies have provided statistical and even experimental evidence that it really works. By detaching through humor or paradoxical action, patients can break the neurotic cycle and regain control. It shows our freedom even over symptoms.
Okay, that's self-detachment. What about finding meaning itself? You said the therapist doesn't give it.
Absolutely crucial point.
Yeah.
Frankl argues that meaning must be found and cannot be given by psychiatrists or professors. To attempt to give meaning to a patient would be moralizing and would violate their fundamental freedom and responsibility.
So how is it found?
He illustrates this by contrasting life to a Rorschach test, where meaning is subjectively projected, versus an embedded figure, where meaning is objectively there but hidden, waiting to be discovered.
Like finding the shape in a complex pattern.
Exactly. This discovery is likened to Gestalt perception, a sudden, intuitive grasp of a whole, a meaning that previously wasn't apparent in the situation. For medical practitioners, this means our role is to facilitate the patient's own discovery of meaning, to help them glimpse possibilities within their suffering, not to prescribe it. We help them adjust their gaze, perhaps.
Facilitate discovery, not prescribe meaning.
Yes. And conscience, he stated, is the means to discover meanings, to sniff them out, leading us to the unique meaning gestalts in specific life situations. It's not about fear of punishment or hope of reward. Those are reductionist interpretations. Frankl, quoting Hebel, asserts conscience cannot be reduced to psychodynamics or sexual drives. He uses that wonderful analogy of the rabbi and the cat.
The cat that ate the butter.
That's the one. The rabbi weighs the cat, finds it weighs 5 pounds, the same as the missing butter, then asks, "Now I have the butter, but where is the cat?" Similarly, he argued, reductionists find their preconceived elements, drives, mechanisms in man, but lose sight of the man himself, the unified, meaning-seeking human being. Conscience is our internal compass for meaning.
So conscience guides us to meaning. What kinds of meaning did he identify? Where can we find it?
Frankl discerned the 3 main avenues, which he called chief groups of values. It's an axiological trichotomy that provides a really practical framework for understanding how individuals can find purpose regardless of their circumstances.
Okay, what are the 3?
First, creative values. These are found in creating a work or doing a deed. This is the meaning derived from what we give to the world through our actions, our work, our contributions.
Like achieving something, building something?
Exactly. For a medical professional, this could be the profound meaning found in performing a life-saving surgery, dedicating oneself to research, or even the consistent, compassionate delivery of daily patient care. It's the satisfaction of contributing.
Okay, creative values. What's second?
Second, experiential values. These are found in experiencing something or encountering someone, especially in love. This is the meaning derived from what we take from the world through our receptivity, our appreciation. This includes appreciating beauty in art or nature, engaging with culture, and particularly the profound connection with another human being, love, friendship, encountering the uniqueness of another.
So appreciating beauty or human connection.
Precisely. Think of the deep bond that can form between a doctor and patient, a bond of trust and shared humanity, or the love within one's family. These experiences, purely in their being, are deeply meaningful. A surgeon might find meaning not just in the technical skill, but in the gratitude in a patient's eyes, or the shared humanity in a difficult conversation.
And the third type, you said these were the highest.
Yes. Thirdly, attitudinal values. These are, for Frankl, the highest and perhaps most profound, particularly for those facing unchangeable circumstances, like a terminal illness, chronic pain, or profound loss. They involve choosing one's attitude towards a fate that cannot be changed. This is the meaning derived from how we respond when we can no longer act creative or experience experiential in the usual ways.
Choosing our attitude towards suffering.
Exactly. This is how the tragic triad, unavoidable pain, irreducible guilt, and inevitable death, can be turned into a human achievement and accomplishment, a triumph of the human spirit. He recounts that powerful story of the elderly physician suffering from severe depression after his wife's death.
How did Frankl help him?
Frankl asked him, what would have happened if you had died first and your wife had survived you? The man replied, oh, for her this would have been terrible, how she would have suffered. Frankl then responded, you see, doctor, such a suffering has been spared her, and it is you who spared her this suffering, but now you have to pay for it by surviving and mourning her.
Ah, reframing his suffering as a meaningful sacrifice.
Precisely. The man said nothing, shook Frankl's hand, and left. In that moment, his suffering hadn't been removed, but it had gained meaning. This reframing, this profound understanding, transformed his despair. This applies directly to patients with chronic pain, terminal illness, or irreversible loss. As clinicians, we can help facilitate that shift in perspective.
Yeah.
Not by denying their suffering, but by helping them find dignity, purpose, or even a legacy in their response to it.
Not sugarcoating grief, but finding meaning within it.
Yes. For a patient facing a terminal diagnosis, it could be the choice to focus on dignity, on connecting with loved ones, leaving a legacy, or even finding meaning in the compassion they receive and perhaps show. It's about exercising that last freedom, the freedom of attitude.
And he believed meaning was available to everyone.
Yes, research consistently supports that life's meaning is unconditional. It can be found regardless of age, IQ, educational level, character, environment, or whether or not they're religious.
That's incredibly empowering for clinicians, isn't it?
It is. It means that despair over the apparent meaninglessness of life constitutes a human achievement rather than a neurosis, as animals don't quest for meaning or despair over its absence. This reframes the patient's existential angst not as a pathology to be eradicated, but as a sign of their unique humanity, a call for deeper existential engagement. It's a challenge to be met, not just a symptom to be medicated away.
This is powerful, especially for those of us in healthcare where our primary aim is often framed as alleviating suffering. It suggests a broader, perhaps deeper role for us. How then does logotherapy define the role of a medical professional in this context? And what's the ultimate aspiration for humanity that Frankl envisions, moving beyond individual meaning to a shared purpose for our collective well-being?
Well, first, logotherapy does not teach or preach specific meanings. It aims to be education to responsibility, awakening the patient's inherent capacity for meaning-making. The logotherapist, or any clinician applying these principles, does not supply the patient with its goal or tell them what their meaning should be. That would be imposing, moralizing.
Respecting the patient's freedom.
Absolutely. The psychiatrist's role, or the doctor's, is not to usurp the clergy's function or to manipulate religious feelings, but to respect the patient's freedom of choice and help them become aware of their own responsibility to find meaning in their life. A religious psychiatrist, for instance, can offer comfort from shared faith as a religious person, connecting human to human, not quasi-psychiatrists exercising professional authority. They understand that religion's ultimate aim is spiritual salvation, not merely mental health, though mental health can certainly be a beneficial byproduct. It's a crucial ethical boundary.
Distinguishing personal beliefs from professional role.
Yes, we facilitate discovery, we don't prescribe meaning, and Frankl deeply emphasizes the pre-reflective ontological self-understanding or wisdom of the heart of the man in the street. This innate wisdom instinctively knows about creative, experiential, and attitudinal values. It's often patients themselves who hold the deepest understanding.
Patients as teachers.
Often, yes. This wisdom, this profound intuitive grasp, even in die-hard positivists, can recognize life's unconditional meaningfulness. He speaks of patients facing terminal illness becoming teachers through their profound experience of confronting death and finding deep meaning within it. We as clinicians are privileged witnesses to this search and should learn from it.
And his vision for humanity as a whole.
For the survival of humankind, Frankl suggests a move beyond mere monotheism, perhaps, to monanthropism, an awareness of the one mankind, a sense of being united by a common will to a common meaning and tackling common tasks.
Like the children in the experiment, finding common purpose.
Exactly. He cites that experiment where children's group aggressions were overcome by a common goal. It demonstrates that shared purpose can unify and uplift. This is a call for a universal human solidarity based on shared meaning and responsibility, a critical message for a world grappling with deep divisions and existential threats like climate change or pandemics, finding a collective why.
A shared purpose for humanity.
Yes. And finally, Frankl acknowledges with great humility that logotherapy is not a panacea. It's open to other therapeutic approaches and to its own evolution. And importantly, it is open to religion. It deals with the logos, with meaning, but understands that the more comprehensive the meaning, the less comprehensible it is.
Ultimate meaning might be beyond our grasp.
Infinite meaning, by its very nature, is beyond finite human comprehension. Where science ends, wisdom takes over. And wisdom, he suggests, is knowledge, and the knowledge of its own limits. This humility and openness is essential for any field, particularly medicine, where human experience often extends beyond what current scientific understanding can fully explain. It's a profound call to wisdom, not just technical expertise.
Professor, what an expansive and truly hopeful vision, both for personal well-being and, well, the future of our shared humanity. We've delved deep into Viktor Frankl's profound insights today, haven't we? From the spiritual unconscious to the existential vacuum and the transformative power of finding meaning even in the darkest moments. His work truly offers a unique lens through which to view human suffering and our innate capacity for purpose. It provides a framework that is remarkably relevant, I think, for medical professionals seeking to understand the complete picture of their patients' lives and, indeed, their own lives. It's about not just adding years to life, perhaps, but adding life to years.
Indeed. That's beautifully put. Frankl's logotherapy reminds us that while we cannot always choose our circumstances, illness, loss, hardship, we retain the ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose our attitude towards those circumstances. And that in this choice lies the potential for ultimate meaning. It's a powerful message for any individual navigating complex human experiences, whether that's in clinical practice, grappling with patient suffering and difficult ethical dilemmas, or in their own personal journey through life's inevitable challenges. It really transforms the question, doesn't it, from what can I expect from life to what does life expect from me?
A fundamental shift. So, for you, our listener, the question remains, what meaning will you discover or perhaps create today? How will you respond to the unique demands of your own life situation? If you found this deep dive valuable, please do take just a moment to rate and share our show. Your support really helps us to continue bringing you these in-depth explorations. Thank you for joining us on the deep dive.